All right, well, we can go ahead and get started, and hopefully Jonathan will be on shortly. So this is the February DAP meeting. We have one item. This is a bit of an unusual one, but I can't say it's not the first time it's happened. For a quick 15-minute item. John and Robert, this item was reviewed by the DAP previously before you guys came on many times at the sketch plan and the site plan process. And the DAP did vote that it could receive 20 design excellence points. It went on to the planning board. The planning board actually had a public hearing on it and approved it. And then there was an issue where the neighbor wasn't properly noticed. And so the applicant had been working with the neighbor for these past couple months to determine what would be necessary to move the project forward in a manner that both could agree on. And so the plans that the applicant provided are to get to that end. And essentially what has been done is they've provided an additional step back on that western side and provided additional articulation on the facade that was not previously proposed. And so really what we're looking at today is that limited scope of that western facade. So with that,
thank you.
Yeah, turn it over to Heather and the applicant team if you guys have anything more to add, or some maybe renderings if you want to pull those up.
Yeah, and Andy, do you want to go ahead and pull up your screen? And while you're pulling that up to share, I'll just, thanks, Grace. That was a great introduction. Appreciate it. And I do want to say we sincerely apologize for the noticing error. It was completely inadvertent, and it was the fault of me. So it was really unfortunate. We felt really bad about it. But we were able to use these past 5 months, I think, really develop a good relationship with our neighbor, come to a mutually agreeable solution. And I think that we do have a stronger relationship with them for it. So an unfortunate situation, but we are glad to have worked through it with them. And so probably by this point, Andy, you have your screen ready to share. I guess, Josh, did you have anything you wanted to add up front before we let Andy have at it?
No, I think you summarized it well. Not a lot to add, but we've formed a close relationship with the Landows, who our neighbor, who raised their hand. We understand their concerns. We were able to work it out, so end result is they're happy and we're happy. So I think it's a win-win at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, Stephanie Dickel with Montgomery County Planning. I just want to echo something that Grace said. It really is going to be the focus for you guys to just take a look at the western facade. It's really, this is a really brief 15-minute item for the DAP to say, hey, you guys are still good with the 20 points and thank you for showing us. Or if there's something little you want to see, this does have a planning board date of March 7th. So we are going to the board with this on March 7th. So that's why this quick item is on here today.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yep. Okay, I guess it's my turn. Hi, everyone. This is I'm Andy Czechowski with SK&I. So yeah, we've been here several times. Just to remind everyone, this site is at the corner of Wisconsin Avenue in Bethesda. It's like the former Starbucks site. They've moved across the street. And just to reiterate, we're specifically talking about this lower western edge of the project. The neighboring property is called The Seasons. It's an existing apartment building. And they have plans for their building, minor adjustments to their program of the project. And they were concerned about the base of the building. So the lower from floors 2 to 6. Which is what we're talking about here. So their request was essentially can we set back 10 feet along that edge? So we went through the exercise, we designed it, redesigned it. And I think the biggest challenge, I think the design has come along quite nicely. And then the biggest challenge is really getting back to the 35% green coverage which we've been able to do. So this is what we came in originally with. This is the previous design. This was what it was which was approved by the planning board. You can see we had sort of the full. We went to the property line essentially on the two edges. Then we had a small inset in the middle where we had some deep stormwater retention, and then back on Miller we went to the property line, and so that was the concern there. And you can see the floor plans above. On floors 2 through 6. And what they asked us to do was essentially do a 10-foot setback along there, a continuous 10-foot setback. So we redesigned those two corner end units, adjusted the plans, added more green cover down here, and took a little bit from the sixth floor or the sixth floor roof. But essentially, I think we've been able to maintain sort of the 2-bedroom units there. They're a little bit smaller, but the floor plans still work. We've been able to meet the program for Folger Pratt, and with minimal sort of adjustments to the overall footprint. And then we just went through and we kind of rendered that. We showed you the before and after. So this is what was originally approved. You could see the full bay to the seasons, and then we adjusted it back 10 feet. So we dropped one bay, and we were able to turn the corner. The 10-foot dimension was actually pretty favorable to us. It allowed us to kind of have a proper corner and a proper bay. So we were able to use the pieces that we've already used, sort of the kit apart of pieces that we used to assemble the facade, and then turn the corner elegantly there. This is sort of looking from the north, looking south. This is along Bethesda Avenue. This is what we originally submitted. So you can see these sort of wings came out to the property line, then we recessed in the middle. And then in the revision, we've pulled it back 10 feet, which actually I think it's, I would argue this is actually a nice improvement to the project. Now we have corner windows, we have more exposure on those corners, and now those facades are activated instead of a blank wall. And then we just sort of zoomed in a little bit, same perspective on Bethesda Avenue. This is what was previously approved. We had the parking garage entrance here. We had the retail, and then that corner with that blank wall returning sort of in that gap between the buildings. And then as we pulled the facade back 10 feet, you can see now the windows open up, they turn the corner, and those units get more exposure on that side. And the seasons as well, there's windows along that property edge as well. So they're looking at us, we're looking at them, and there's a proper, a decent amount of setback between the two buildings. Just sort of walking around, this is coming back on Miller, similar perspective on Miller. So this was what was previously submitted, and this is what we've adjusted it to. And then we have a zoom in of that. This is Miller. This is this is the loading docks here on Miller, and then we have the bike room, and then the lobby extends towards Wisconsin Avenue.
And Andy, just to note, none of that's changed, right? So the ground floor circulation, parking entrances, the loading docks, none of that's changed. Again, it's
none of that's changed.
From levels 2 to 7, specifically facing Landell's property.
Exactly. And they were very much aware of all the issues that we had to go through to negotiate the loading, negotiate the garage entrance, and they didn't want to upset those things. So it was really just the relief, so that the buildings had the units along that wall had more relief between them.
And just to provide further context, one of the reasons for their ask on the step back is because they're going to, one, it's a primarily residential building. Two, they're converting the office space that they do have on their second floor to residential with residential balconies. So they'll be pure residential in the near future as well as us. And the interest was to protect future redevelopment rights, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So as I mentioned before, I guess the quirky challenge was, getting back to the 35%. And I think on these smaller sites in downtown Bethesda, this was kind of a challenge, obviously, providing us the 35% green coverage along with enough, amenity space for the property, and then balancing that with all the mechanical equipment we needed on the overall project. But we were able to get there in 35%. And this is the previous scheme, and we adjusted it. So we sort of shuffled all the green cover while still providing sort of adequate space for walkout for maintenance and terraces for the units. So I think the team, did a good job in organizing the roof terraces of this property. If there's any other comments? I think the rest of the deck was just supplemental information, but those were the key slides for the project. There's any questions or
Rod, you want to go first, given that you have the history?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, it's definitely an improvement. What can we say other than that? I think it's much better. It's much better because of it. So I appreciate it. I'm kind of curious though about the memo from the planning department about wanting greater articulation on the window. I mean, if somebody could elaborate on that, because I think it fits in pretty nicely.
I think this is the good corner to show what we were talking about. I think, with the additional 10 feet of separation between the buildings, anybody coming up this street or Miller Street, you're going to see more of the corner of the building in 3 dimensions, and which I think is good. And I think the inclusion of the windows certainly is a significant improvement on those corners. I guess what we were talking about is, rather than this west elevation looking so flat, could there be articulation similar to what you're seeing here? I guess that's Bethesda. On Bethesda, where you have sort of a somewhat of a projection of the frame that might come around, that the windows on the west elevation at these corners, just at the corner, not necessarily in the middle, but at the corners, could have some sort of a similar articulation where you have kind of this somewhat projecting frame, so that you actually see the windows as a a pair or of a greater composition that actually wraps, and especially if you have that additional 10 feet so that you could see it. I think it's kind of important that we see that articulation wrap the corners. I think it'd just be an improvement rather than having more of just a flat vertical band there of windows. That was the comment. Otherwise, I think we have no problem with the setback or anything else. There was a lot of discussion in the initial design. I think we were pushing you guys to get more points rather than fewer. I think you were coming in with 10, asking for 10 originally, and we wanted more. And so we wanted to see greater detail. And I think that was what stimulated sort of more detail on the windows facing north. But I think we would just like to see a little bit more of that articulation also facing west, at least at those 2 ends.
I had a similar thought, Paul, as I was looking at the windows. I agree that 10 feet is an improvement. I think if you could treat the corner window as a bay, a 3-dimensional object that wraps the corner, that could be pretty nice, and more interesting than having the facade change around the corner. That's just a concept. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it would be more interesting architecturally to turn that into a 3-dimensional volume at the corner. And it would feel like one of the paired bays sort of wrapping the corner, which could be kind of interesting as opposed to sort of a single. I also want to just compliment on the additional glass for the MPDUs in the middle. That's a nice move from the previous submission. Those are internal units that, I guess, Andy, there's a 10 feet on either side setback, so a 20-foot space. Having more glass for those interior MPDUs is a good move.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I think that was I guess the challenge was maintaining, it was difficult to push in even more on these corners to compromise the unit design and without reshuffling the whole deck. But, we were able to adapt the current units that we had to maintain the unit mix that was important for Folger Pratt. So, you know, I think we kind of hit the balance there, and I think we avoided sculpting that corner or adding sort of you know, a corner bay primarily because of the 10-foot, you know, request from the neighbors. So. And
Hey, Andy, this is John, could you go to the previous slide for 1 second? That one, yeah. And then could you zoom here? First of all, it's the first time, I think the project looks really solid. I think the architecture presents itself really nice, and it's going to be a really wonderful addition to the CBD of the downtown Bethesda. The question I have is maybe a little bit in the weeds, but if you could zoom in a little bit, and it's regarding the balcony and the parapet railing treatment. And so this is just a little bit into the architecture. Can you zoom in on it? Just I have a question for you. Yeah. And then show me if you show the balconies that go on the left-hand side, the balconies. Yeah. I don't know, maybe this is just my own personal, go show more of the balcony if you would, the railings. I have a hard problem with these railings. I think the building presents really strongly. And then the railings all of a sudden the ones that project seem to like take away from the overall character of the building as they kind of zipper up the side of the building. Is there a way to make those railings? Have you guys thought about looking at those railings, whether it's glazing with some kind of nice frame around it to kind of mirror the glass and get rid of that, what I would call suburban pedestrian railing quality?
Upper left corner there, Andy.
Yeah, keep going. Those extending balconies,
Those
right?
ones.
Yeah, I just think that feels like it actually detracts from the nature of the glazing and the going up the building, and not to mention the parapet railing as well.
Sure.
Maybe Josh, question for you, Josh, from a dollar standpoint.
Well, we all know glass is more expensive. Look, I think we would consider it, but I can't promise it to you. And you know, we've gone through this process for about 3 years now. And I understand your comment. I respect your comment. I can't say yes to it on this call. It's something that we would consider, but I can't promise it right now.
Yeah, John, I would just jump in real quick. Stephanie Dickel again. I think the comment is great, and it would have been something, you know, maybe a comment that could have been made multiple rounds previously, but now the focus really is just the 10-foot step back from floors, I guess 2 to 6 on the western side for this group.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and you guys have dealt with it, I think, in a really wonderful way, and it seems like everybody's on the same page, which is great. I just, as a first-time observer of the architecture, that was where my comments coming from, so probably unfair given the path you've been on.
Yeah, and I would say, just in defense of these rails, I think the manufactured options that are available now are more sophisticated than they've been in the past. So I think these can still look very handsome and elegant when delivered. So.
So Andy, before when you were mentioning about avoiding adding or wrapping that window around the corner because of the 10-foot setback, are you saying that, so you did study perhaps doing, I think what was Robert's comment, but that because of the 10-foot, you cannot?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, we didn't really want to, in having the conversations with them, we wanted to, you know, fully respect that dimension, to be quite candid. So, and we couldn't necessarily lose additional square footage out of those units. They just quite simply wouldn't work anymore. So this was a fairly straightforward response, you know, to the comments.
I guess what I'm suggesting, Andy, is that vertical window on west elevation is it's almost just a punched opening. And I just think that it needs more articulation, particularly around kind of around the frame, in the brickwork or whatever else, maybe it's metalwork or, similar to what happens on the north. And it could be maybe less of a projection, but something that just sort of, brings that kind of character around the corner.
Sure.
So again, it looks like they're both, both elevations are responding to each other in a more clear way.
Yeah, and maybe it's not clear when you zoom in, but we did provide brickwork details, sort of these zipper projections of a different brick to create that texture. So we brought that texture around and created that and wrapped sort of the larger sort of the living room windows with that brick detailing. So the brick detailing is gonna be there. We just opted not to wrap the bay window and minimize that dimension.
I have a question, Andy.
Yeah.
You could actually merge them, right? The glass could become the bay, and you could eliminate the corner masonry post. And again, to me, this is not a deal breaker, but it could be quite a nice architectural resolution of the corner, which feels like, the bay's been cut in half at the end of the composition. So if you turn the corner with it and have it slide into the masonry, that's another way to handle it, where you get kind of a both and move without losing any density. I would imagine that the neighbors wouldn't mind the bay because it's so much nicer to look at, but I'm just trying to think of other ways without, maybe violating your fire code issue or your cost issue, that you could merge the two ideas and slip the bay into the corner.
Sure.
Just another thought. But I agree. Overall, I think this is an improvement.
Yeah.
Any other comments from online? So I'm hearing from the panel that, you could get some more articulation in the corner in ways that wouldn't project into the 10-foot, but it's not exactly a deal breaker. So how is the panel feeling are we feeling okay to continue with the 20 points? And if anything, could the applicant perhaps look into additional articulation at the time of certified site plan?
Yeah, personally, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, take it into consideration. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Understood and appreciated. Yeah.
Okay. I don't see John on the screen anymore, but
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm good with the improvements are really, really solid. So it looks good. And there's no deal breaker here, to use Robert's expression.
All righty then. It was not 15 minutes, it was 23 minutes, but thank you all. And I do believe we will be having at least one item at our March Design Advisory Panel meeting. So we'll be in touch for that agenda shortly.
Is there a date on that?
We should be back to our normal schedule of the 4th Wednesday, which will be the 27th of March.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.